Welcome to Eugene Cannabis TV. This is the show 574. We had a scheduled guest, but he didn't show. So instead of, after setting everything up, we thought, well, you know, I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. How am I going to do a whole half-hour dialogue with no notes, because I didn't bring any stories. I was going to have a guest. But then quickly I got to thinking about it, and I thought, you know, I think I'll tell my story, my activist, legalization activist story. I think it's interesting, and I hope you do too. But I think it was in 1992 that I was on the Lane Transit bus, and I was dislocated timber worker, I'm trying to say, and going to Lane Community to be a draftsman. And I had my fanny pack with me on the bus, and I had 5/8 of cannabis, and my wallet in my fanny pack, and I was carrying it instead of wearing it, and I forgot, and I left it on the bus. So when I went to call Lost and Found, LTD, Officer Olson came on the line and asked if that bag, the black bag, was mine, and identified it, and he said, it has your wallet in it with your license, you know. What am I going to say? I said, yeah, that's mine. So anyway, I went down to the police station to pick up my wallet so I'd have my ID and stuff, and he was going to give me a citation. So I got down there, and the first thing he said, it looks like intent to delivery. You had 5/8 in that bag. And I said, well, not necessarily, because if something is hard to get and you find some, you don't really care how many bags it comes in. You're going to get as much as you can. So just because I have 5 bags doesn't necessarily mean I'm not to sell them. I might have just bought them. And he said, you know, that's a good point. You know, I got him thinking. So anyway, we had a nice little chat. He gave me a citation for intent to delivery, and they were intending on charging me a felony. And so then I started the process in criminal, as a criminal defendant. And that was a whole new journey, because in the past I've had some dealing with attorneys. As a truck driver, I've had quite a bit of traffic court. As a truck driver, I've had several divorces. So I've been to court on on child custody and divorces too. But anyway, it's the criminal law system is a whole different ball game, a whole different deal. For one, they don't take payments. They don't take payments. You know, the other kind of lawyers do, but criminal lawyers, they want the money up front, I guess for obvious reasons. But anyway, so I applied for legal aid, and or is that what they call it? Anyway, I have an attorney. You know, if you cannot afford an attorney, one will be appointed to you. Now there's a joke. The whole system is a joke. Well, I'll get into that as we go along. But anyway. So I go down and I apply for counsel, you know. So here I got this stack of sheets about 1/4 inch high, and I have to list everything I own. Well, I didn't put down everything I own, but I put down most of the big stuff, you know. And so anyway, and then I started looking for an attorney. Well, the cheapest I could find was $1,500. Cash. That's what they wanted up front, $1,500, and again, that's just a start. I found that generally in criminal law, you're not going to end up less than $3,000. I mean, it's going to be $3,000 or up before you're done at least. But anyway, so then I get the word back from the legal, from the attorney thing, you know, and turns out that they told me that I didn't qualify for it because I could afford my own $750 lawyer, which kind of struck me as kind of being screwed up, because first of all, you mean I got to sell 1/4 of my stuff so that I can get the money up to defend me, so I can defend myself, and then so and then I could and again they said I could afford a $750 lawyer, and I couldn't find one for less than $1,500. So you can see the gap there. So I mean, what a joke, you know. And so I thought, well, I guess I'm going without an attorney. I've been wanting to meet some growers. I thought, well, I guess I'll meet some inside. And all I can do is plead not guilty and write it out. And so in the meantime, I thought, you know, I should write a letter. So I wrote a couple letters. I wrote one to the Attorney General, United States Attorney General, and also to the Oregon Attorney General at the time, and never heard back from anybody. And so anyway, the trial date came, and I showed up, and the judge, I forgot his name, but anyway, the judge asked me, he said, well, do you have an attorney? And I said, no. And he said, well, have you applied for one? And I said, yes. And I told him the whole story. And he said, well, he says, you had time to find an attorney, so we're going forward on it. And then the assistant, he called the assistant, the DA that was handling the case, and he stood up and he said, I haven't spoken to Mr. Kuzer yet. I just got this case this morning. And he says, I haven't had a chance to speak to him yet. And so I said, certainly, I'll meet with him. So we went out in the hall and we sat down and had a little chat. And the one thing that was kind of neat about it was that he told me that Officer Olson put in a good word for me. He said I was a stand-up guy, and you know, that was kind of neat. But anyway, he ended up offering me a plea bargain. Now, it was interesting because it didn't start out by saying, well, if you plead guilty, here's what we'll do. You know, it was this kind of I wish I could have had it taped. But he just, I don't know how, but anyway, he started talking, and next thing we kind of come around, what I call come around the mulberry bush, and then I ended up with a plea bargain. So if I plead guilty to possession, they would it'd be a violation. It's not even a misdemeanor, and $500 fine. And I had $160 on my wallet, and they took they held on to it, but then they applied it towards the fine. So then I made payments on the rest of it. So all in all, it wasn't too bad. On one hand, I felt kind of bad because I was pleading guilty to something I wasn't guilty of. I didn't have an intention to deliver that. I didn't know anybody at Lane Community that smoked, much less, so I certainly didn't have any customers at Lane to sell them any pot, but anyway, I did have possession of it, so so the fine, it was just, like I said, it's just a fine. But anyway, that's what got me started as an activist. And I found over the years that a lot of activists are in the same exact thing happened to them. They got busted, they got pissed off, and they decided to fight. And I've been fighting ever since. And a couple of times I've kind of got calmed down a little bit and kind of burned out and ready to say the heck with it, you know. And then something happens and I get all fired up and mad again. So I don't remember the year it was, but the Portland Normal chapter at the time had Strop, my mind's going by, the Keith Strop, the Normal director, was coming into Portland. I had a chance to, I never had met him before, and so a friend of mine, I got a ride with a friend of mine, and we went up to Portland to their chapter meeting and met Keith Strop. And at the time I was getting pretty burnt out and ready to quit. So I went to that meeting and I got all fired up because I asked him, I said, why is Normal paying for billboards in San Francisco suggesting that we should legalize the use of marijuana, and that's in California, and they don't have an initiative. And in Oregon, we've had a half a dozen initiatives between 1988 and let's see, 2006 or so, 7, and Normal never acknowledged any of them. Never lifted, I mean, they simply never acknowledged them, you know. And so why are they putting billboards in California when they don't even have an initiative? And the local chapter people up there were kind of mad at me for calling him on it, but he told them, he said, no, he's right. He's right. And anyway, I don't remember his excuse. It was pretty weak, you know. But anyway, that whole meeting just ticked me off so bad that it fired me up, and I was ready to go again. And then later years, we ended up forming our own Normal chapter. And that was quite an experience in itself, which also I got to tell you about. And one thing about the story I was telling you about they were going to charge me with intent to delivery, I missed part. Let me go back up a little bit. I went to meet with the DA that was handling my case, and I was going to try to work something out with him. And I've forgotten his name now at the time, but I can't remember what his name was, but he had my file, and we met in the hall, and I told him, I said, look, I said, my father was a gunsmith. I've always had weapons. I have really got to fight. I mean, I can't have a felony because I can't imagine being without a gun. You know, I grew up with them, so this just can't happen. And he looked at my file, you know, and he said, well, he says, you look at my driving record, which the driving record was clean, except that I have a, well, that's another story. This could take another few minutes, but I have an Oregon driver's license, but I'm suspended in all the other Western United States. So, because being a truck driver, I got tickets in a couple of other states, didn't pay them, so then they suspended my privileges to drive in that state. And so even though my Oregon driver's license is good as gold, my record is so clean, it's blank. I can't drive in California, well, I said, any of the Western states. So anyway, that came back suspended all over the Western United States, you know, and he says, well, you sound like a lawbreaker to me. He says, I'll see you in court, and went stomping off. And so anyway, that's the way I went into that whole deal, and ended up figuring I was going to have to fight it myself, by myself, you know. And attorney I talked to later told me that actually I ended up he said, you did better for yourself than I could have done for you. So just blind luck. I'm not a lawyer by any means. I like to say I don't speak legalese. Legal documents are foreign to me. I can't understand them. So the main thing is that if you believe in what you're doing, you believe in your freedom, you believe in your right to freedom, and don't panic. That's the main thing, I guess, is don't panic, because being a truck driver, you know, I come across situations involving law enforcement. Even to this day, the law enforcement still intimidates me some, but you always got to think what you're doing all the time. Think it through. When you panic, you lose it in anything, and including situations like that. So anyway, we're going to take a break here, and we'll come back for the second half. And I talked to you about the normal chapter. Now that's another interesting story, how we formed our local normal chapter. We fought tooth and nail, and the Portland chapter tried to keep us from forming a chapter. And one of their people was actually on the national board. So it was an interesting time, and people are always surprised. They can't imagine that one chapter would try to prevent a group from starting another chapter in a different city, you know. But anyway, it definitely happened. It's not one of those things that I heard about or, you know, read about. That was there. I mean, it happened. So it's history, and fellow activists on me talking about it. So anyway, we'll be right back.
I'm a doctor.
I'm a lawyer.
I'm a journalist.
I'm a student.
I'm a teacher.
I'm a representative.
I have cancer.
The outdated laws of prohibition are more dangerous than the plant itself.
I lost my scholarship.
I was fired.
20 million arrests since 1965. This is getting ridiculous.
Our prisons are overcrowded with non-violent offenders.
We have the opportunity to change.
This is costing our country billions of dollars.
Making my family and I fight in a courtroom is difficult enough when I'm already fighting through chemotherapy.
There's no reason to be scared by tradition anymore.
We can stop this.
We can stop this.
We are the American people,
We can stop this.
and you have our support.
We're old.
Young.
Straight.
Gay.
We're every race and nationality.
And we're not going to give up.
You can tax it.
You can regulate it.
Apply age restrictions.
You can create millions of new jobs.
We can save our economy.
President Obama?
It's time for legalization.
Legalization.
Yes.
We.
Can.
This has been a public service announcement.
Welcome to the second half of the Eugene Cannabis TV show, episode 574, and this is the show that I'm talking about my life as an activist and a little bit of history of where I'm coming from and what I went through, and it's been a wild ride. That was the reason we met in the first place. I'm thinking it was '92, but the friend of mine, John Walsh, posted a notice at the university to form a normal chapter, and that was the premise that I met with this group. And we had weekly meetings after that, and we talked about forming a normal chapter and talking about cannabis issues. Back in those days, we had 25 and 30 people a night, and it was amazing. On a Wednesday night, we met at the U of O in one of their meeting rooms, and it was really good times. And we finally decided that we didn't want to form a normal chapter. We decided we wanted to go with our own chapter. We didn't want to have to answer anybody. We wanted to do our own thing. So after we finally decided to do that, it took I think it was a couple it took us a couple of months to try to figure out what to call ourselves. And so finally we came down to what I wanted was a Cannabis Liberation Front. And I'd never heard it used before, and even though it sounds a little militant, I thought it'd be cool. But the group felt that was a little too militant, so they ended up, but they liked the cannabis liberation, so they ended up deciding, well, let's go with cannabis. So anyway, we all voted and decided to go with Cannabis Liberation Society. So that was the name of the group, and we went for quite a while under the Cannabis Liberation Society. And we had some great members back in those times. We had a friend of ours named Oshara, which was a really sweet lady, and she would bring a 35 millimeter film, plastic canister with the little smiley faces on them. You know, when you got the poison stickers with the ugly face, and then you put the little green stickers with a smiley face on the stuff that's not poisonous. Well, she had a bunch of the little green stickers, and she had them on this 35 millimeter camera, film case. And she would always bring one of those, and we would go outside and sit under a big tree after the meeting and pull out our pipes, and she would load everybody's pipe, and we all would just visit and pass the pipe around. And then when we left, when we broke up for the evening, she would always leave the container with somebody, and I still have one. I came across it a while back, and it's a real memento, a real memory thing, you know. But anyway, she's a special lady, and she came up with a couple of sayings that I really enjoyed. She used to say, two or three stoners can do the work of any one normal person. And the other one was pot activist. My favorite one, yes, a pot activist. That's an oxymoron. So. But anyway, she was a sweetheart. So we had a lot of great people then. But over the years, you know, they kind of drifted off, and later John Walsh, and it was pretty much John Walsh and I, and so we decided we were going to change the name to Cannabis Liberation Front because we weren't militant. No, I take it back. We weren't violent, we were militant. That's the whole thing, you know. So we decided to go with Cannabis Liberation Front, and even though it's in this day and age with terrorism and all that, some kind of a bad connotation, but we never had any problem with it. It's again, we feel that it's time to be militant. So, especially now, I mean, look at we finally passed legalization. Can you believe it? Oregon, it's legal. It's going to be, at least July 1st, legal to possess cannabis. But at the same time, you've got to realize that it's not true legalization. It's actually just further decriminalization, because there's still penalties involved. You know, if you smoke in the public, if you it goes on and on and on, and it's, you know, there are restrictions on it. So I've always been a tax and regulate. I was for 91, and I'm glad that it passed. But the way things are going, it was kind of figured that was the way it was going to be. Big money is kind of taking over and rolling over everybody, and it's just battle royal. So actually, what we really needed was an amendment, but there wasn't financing for that. Nobody had the money for it. But the advantage, if we had passed a legalization amendment, then the legislature couldn't mess with it, and they'd have to enact it the way it is. But no, we went with a regular initiative, and so even though we had a 12-point spread, the Oregon legislature is still trying to circumvent the will of the people, and that's just the situation the way it is. So anyway, it's quite disgusting. So anyway, let me get you back to my activism story. And we ended up we did finally start a normal chapter, and which I don't remember the year, but anyway, we did start the Willamette Valley Normal Chapter, and the reason we started it was my friend Perry Stripling, who's been on the show in the past years quite a bit. was part of the original Portland Normal Chapter. Well, they ended up having a big fallout and a breakup, and they ended up starting a new chapter called Oregon Normal. And Perry was the webmaster, and he had a bunch of stuff on the website that, unless you're a normal chapter, you can't retain it. And so that was one of the reasons he wanted to start a normal chapter. And he asked me if I would help. And at first, I wasn't. I've never been a real big normal fan, I guess you'd say, because I didn't feel that they really gave Oregon the support over the years like they should have or could have. But anyway, when Perry asked me about helping him form a normal chapter, I got to thinking that, well, normal has name familiarity. I'll give it that. They do have name familiarity when people talk about legalization. Oh yeah, normal. So I'll use any tool I can to help kind of get some help so we can get this thing legalized. And again, it is legal, yes, but we still got a ways to go, so we're still working on it. So we still need help, actually. But anyway, and then the third reason I wanted to start a normal chapter was if you have problems with an organization, you can do more changing from the inside than you can from the outside. And so that was the third reason why I agreed to become part of the effort to start a normal chapter. So anyway, we started a normal chapter. We called it Willamette Valley Normal and went through the regular procedures and all that. And then it turned out that the new Oregon Normal Chapter, well, it wasn't real new at that point, but anyway, the chapter up in Portland, fought tooth and nail, contacted an attorney, our attorney. We had an attorney that agreed to help us out pro bono. They contacted him and told him that the only reason we wanted to form a normal chapter is so that we could give us a platform to ridicule them. Well, I didn't need a platform to ridicule them. I already was, and that's why they're mad at me, because I told the truth. Like they were having monthly meetings, but only letting patients come in because they were giving out medicine and the clones and stuff. And so, if you're wanting to get active in Portland as a political action activist in legalizing marijuana, and you wanted to join normal, you can only, and not a patient, you can only go to a meeting every 3 months. The public meetings were the quarterly meetings, so every 3 months you could go to a meeting then. And so that isn't right, and almost everybody I talked to says that isn't right, but that was just the way they did it, so they got mad at me for pointing that out. And then, there was a couple other things too. So anyway, they fought tooth and nail, and they told our attorney that that was the reason why we were trying to form the chapter. And so the attorney didn't even bother to call me and ask me, what's this about? He just simply withdrew his support, which to this day I'm still a little bitter about. He didn't even have the decency to check with me. But anyway, we had a great countermeasure between Perry and I and a few other friends that we got on the phone and emails and started contacting people that we knew from over the years and told them and said, hey, this is what's happening, and you know me, I know you, and I'm telling you this is what's happening. And we rolled over them, so we ended up with the chapter. They put us on a 6-month probation period, and the funny part was, this is one of the funniest parts to me, they told us that we had to get along with the other chapters in the state. Well, that was really the only other chapter in the state. And the funny thing is that they were attacking us, We weren't attacking them, but they're attacking us, and then we're told that we got to get along with them, So I'm not making this up, folks. But anyway, we overcame it all and made it through our probation period, and in spite of them trying to take us down one other time, that's another story, but I won't go into that one, but they did try to take us down, but we rolled over that too. So to this day, our normal chapter is surviving. It's one of 2 normal chapters in the state of Oregon, and we have our monthly meetings, and any information that you hear about and need to know, drop me an email. It's dankbagman@hotmail.com. That was my show name when I used to wear a bag over my head back when I started back in the early 80s, early 90s. So anyway, yeah, DanK Bagman is at Hotmail, so I can send you all that information, and you'd love to have you come to some of the Willamette Valley Normal meetings or any of the other things going on. We got some really good, dedicated people that are with the local Normal chapter. And so anyway, let's see, yes, 91, and like I said, I've always been a tax and regulate kind of guy, but after 91 came and we passed it, and I saw the margin that we passed it, and then I realized, you know, we really should do an amendment. I wish we could have done an amendment, but my new thing is, to heck with the tax and regulate. We've been taxed and regulated since 1937, you know, by incarceration, by taking away our kids, by taking our property. It could go on and on. So we've been taxed and regulated since 1937, and it needs to stop. So my new thing is I want marijuana to be as legal and regulated as tomatoes. That's just, it's a plant. So let's get with it, you know. So, but unfortunately, there's no big bucks behind that, because, like I've been saying for all these years, the reason we don't have legalization is because there's no money in legalization. Well, now there's money in legalization. Look at these business seminars, conferences that they're putting on that are costing $300 and up to attend, to learn how to get into this money, the whole cannabis money business thing, you know. So now there's money in legalization, and now look at all the money floating around. But there's no money for an amendment to make it really legal, because there's no money. There wouldn't be any money in it. So that's why it probably will never happen. But anyway, that's what needs to happen. So anyway, that's my life as an activist, at least the major parts of it. And give me a shout. I'd like to hear from you. Thanks. We'll see you next week.